Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on how to engage customers and clients via a digital concierge service in a lockdown world. My name is Mario Kiriakou. I'm the co-founder here at Ratio FS, and I'll be taking us through today's presentation. So we've got quite a lot to rattle through today. Hopefully we'll finish within about half an hour, so give you plenty of time if you have any questions to ping those at the end. Just to let everyone know that today's session is being recorded, and I will send this over to everyone by probably about tomorrow, so by the end of the day, Friday. So for today's presentation, there's two specific areas that we're going to be exploring. We're going to be looking at how digital can support delivering that sort of next generation multi-channel client and customer experience in financial services. And then we're going to be exploring the role around how do we begin to reimagine the advice and relationship that your customers and clients have with you as an organization. So in terms of challenges over the last year, I mean, these are areas which everyone on the call today is going to be more than familiar with. So, I appreciate it if I'm reiterating things which you already, completely cognizant of, but I think it's probably worthwhile just to run through these again. From my perspective, the pandemic has supercharged so many things in terms of financial services. Obviously, there's the rush to digitize services as quickly as possible, but one of the areas of impact that the pandemic has had over the last year is this idea around having remote client interactions. So if you're a financial services organization that typically has a client management or relationship management type function that engages with onboarded customers, new customers, it's obviously been difficult to have FaceTime. So we're all aware of Zoom fatigue, and that's had an impact in the way you can service those customers. It's pretty clear going forward that even with a return to normality, customers will expect an element of remote interaction to continue. So it's not going to go back to a complete face-to-face world. If you have clients typically, and I'm thinking of financial services organizations within the wealth management or perhaps private banking spaces, they typically work with you as an organization because of your individual expertise, your high level of management, high level of service that you provide these clients. And in those instances, digital isn't about completely replacing the human touch. If you're an organization such as a wealth manager or a private bank, where the human element is an important differentiator and USP around what you deliver in terms of the value to the client, we shouldn't look at digital as a competition in terms of trying to replace and replicate the services that the offline part of your business delivers to clients. So from my perspective, the opportunities around digital is around, especially for incumbents, is around evolution, not revolution. It isn't about burning your business model to the ground. It's about evolving the use of digital and looking to understand how digital can be more complementary and help support your core business and help support clients' goals. So let's explore around how digital can enhance and support a couple of key areas. I've called it the client manager's experience, but depending on your organization, you may refer to these roles and individuals as different things. They may be client management functions. They could be relationship managers. Regardless, during today's presentation, I would like to explore how digital can support the relationship client manager's role of how can they better service clients. And the other part is the digital experience, this experience that customers and clients have with you as an organization. How can digital enhance the overall experience that they have with you as a business and leave a positive reaction behind? And to explore where I think the role of a digital concierge service can play in delivering that sort of hyper-tailored, hyper-personalized customer experience, I'd like to explore a little bit around the offline experience and what that looks like, and why I think that plays an important part in trying to design the digital concierge experience for customers. So let's explore the relationship to the client experience. So typically, if you're a private bank, for example, you have your relationship managers, client managers, managing a pool of client relationships. There's some obvious super positives to that engagement. One, by getting to know their customers deeply, understanding their goals, their challenges, they could begin to build out tightly personalized advice tailored specifically to that individual's or businesses' interests and objectives for the years ahead. But there's obviously some challenges to that offline type of relationship. Um, Invariably, depending on how you structure your business, relationship client managers may be looking after lots of different clients. Um, with the pandemic and the fact that probably customers will be happier with more remote type um, relationship building has been restricted to things like video conferencing, Zoom calls, etc. And ultimately, relationship managers' information that they gather is restricted typically to what they collect during these type of calls or with the exchange of emails. So a question, how can digital support relationship and client managers? And the second question, how can digital help to deliver a more personalized customer experience? So start by exploring. Let's start with the online experience, not mirroring the offline experience. If the whole purpose of the offline experience for between the customers and your organization is about getting to know them as individuals or businesses, understanding their level of risk, where they would wish to invest, how they want to grow their money, or, do they want to invest in more sustainable causes, etc. It's about asking questions and listening and building an experience based around understanding that customer's goals. And in terms of the online experience, we want to deliver something similar. We want the digital equivalent of asking the customer the right questions, having our ears open so that we're listening and understanding, and then feeding back a experience across different channels that would mirror the type of relationship that you would have if you got to know that person on an individual basis. So how do we typically look to digitize this offline relationship? And what I always say is it's sort of the foundational um, layer of trying to work towards any sort of digital concierge type experience. So I always typically say, let's start by building a single profile on your clients. And this will make more sense as we go through today's presentation, but by a single client or customer profile, what do I mean by that? Um, the best analogy I use when describing this is to think of typical CRM systems. CRM systems obviously are heavily used by the majority of organizations, and the whole purpose of a CRM system is typically to be the single source of truth on your customers and the businesses you engage with. And it will include snapshots of customers, accounts you deal with, everything you need to know about them as a business. And when I think of the single client profile, I like to think of the digital version. So we, as marketers working in digital, need a digital CRM equivalent, one that will capture what we know about customers and clients, how they're interacting with us, the content they consume, the channels they engage with, the the clues they leave behind to indicate what their interests are at given points. What are they telling us? And this allows us to begin to build a single view of that customer. And it's important because it's this which is going to allow us to understand some of their challenges. And when I typically talk about this, something that always comes up is, what type of data can we be capturing? And typically, as an organization, if you was to go back and you do an audit of your digital platforms and digital services, you'll find that you're potentially capturing already an enormous amount of information that's just perhaps not being stored in a way that allows you as a digital team to design an experience around it that can then influence that customer's experience with you across multiple channels. But typically you'll be capturing all sorts of information depending on the type of technology and tagging tools you have currently in place around um, when they visit the site, what content are they consuming, what is their focal point for that specific visit around, this type of services, products that you provide, what content are they consuming. That gives us an idea of the areas which are top of mind at a given moment. And these data points are typically held across a bunch of systems. I mean, I've got a couple of examples on the screen above, but obviously it can be a long list or it could be a short list depending on the type of technologies that you have in place, from the content management systems that you have, the email platform, the advertising tools, and any sort of client management portals that you have. Within each of those systems reside an element of the data points that we require or would like access to in order to begin to build a picture of our customers, so we could try and begin to design what this concierge experience could look like on a one-to-one basis. Because ultimately the single client profile and building towards that sort of digital CRM system is about helping you as marketers working with the organizations to have the information so you can understand the segments, the customers that you have, so you can begin to deliver personalized content experiences across perhaps a single channel initially, say for example the website, but ultimately across multiple channels, including things like email and even enriching things like CRM systems, and client portals. But the idea is, if we can track what our customers are doing and telling us, that is the sort of raw ingredients that we require to then begin to design personalized experiences. So why a single profile? So typically the systems that digital, and I'm going to call them relationship managers for now, use on a day-to-day basis is separate. Marketing will have its own tools, and any sort of offline, client customer support element will have their tools. And rarely do those systems, interact or share data between the two. And there's obviously a challenge around that, because if you're, for example, a marketer working in a private bank, part of designing that concierge service, but also about looking to support your offline teams with data and insight, is about understanding the type of conversations that are occurring via digital channels, but also offline channels. And why does this matter? Well, we only know what we currently know. A relationship manager has no idea what their clients are researching or reading or interested in outside of their conversations. So unless they have the opportunity to speak with their clients weekly, and the conversations are really open and honest, it can be difficult to understand if there is any other informational data points sitting around that customer they're not aware of. For example, are they researching around sustainable investment? If you knew that, what would you do with that information? Would that trigger a new conversation? So the idea of one single profile is for relationship management to access everything that they know about their client. So from my perspective, the digital concierge service, the idea around it, the concept, isn't just about delivering a great digital experience. It's about delivering a great experience, full stop. From the client's perspective, they're not that bothered about it being a great digital experience versus a great offline experience. It's just a great experience. So from my perspective, the single profile is something which gives the offline teams the ability to deliver a better experience as well. For example, what if you're a relationship manager or a client manager, if this information was something which you had at your fingertips, how important or valuable would it be? For example, if you knew what your customers and clients were actively researching for example, if you knew they were, as I mentioned before, researching around certain types of investments or certain types of products, as a relationship manager, what would you do with that information? Would that trigger an immediate outreach to discuss some of that elements of areas of research which is top of mind? As a marketer, if you knew that your audience were researching or looking at certain types of content, or leaving behind certain clues, how would that influence the type of digital experience that you would like to deliver to them as individuals? The second part is detailed reports on when and how customers and potential customers have recently conducted research, reports on specific interest areas, combining that data with the offline conversations, and in effect creating a single view augmented by digital and offline. And that gives us these sort of foundational points to begin to scale the type of experiences that we can deliver to customers. As I said earlier in the presentation, my perspective is always evolution, not revolution. It's very difficult, especially for incumbent financial services organizations, to burn everything to the ground and start again. It's reality is next to impossible. So from my perspective, digital is about how I think its opportunity is how it can begin to augment and support your existing business model. So for example, for relationship managers, the role of digital in driving the right type of intelligence, so they can have the relevant types of conversations, so they can supercharge those conversations. I read an interesting interview from The Guardian recently. I think it was covering, I can't remember the individual at, I think it was Coutts Private Bank, where they talked about during the pandemic, the number of onboarded customers has diminished, that it's been very difficult to have the type of one-to-one relationships or relationship building type exercises that they typically had with customers. And I thought that's actually a very good point, very good challenge, and actually something where digital can not look to replace, but look to augment the type of experience that they had before. So digital is never going to replace the traditional type of relationship building, getting someone in, having a meal, getting to know them over an hour or two, but it can help support the type of information that you want to capture about those customers to help better serve them. So now let's reimagine the personalized experience based around the single customer profile. So from my perspective, this idea of the digital CRM is useless or valueless unless we actually leverage that information, that data around customers, to then do something with it, to then influence the experience across digital channels that they will have as they engage with you as a brand. So let's explore around building the client experience from the client's perspective. So what does a personalized client experience look like? And obviously this will vary. The idea of hyper personalization or tailored digital experience, well, is obviously more invariably going to vary for different customers, different segments, because each customer, whether it's an individual or an organization, has different goals, different interests, different objectives at different stages of their life, and therefore the type of value that they're looking for from you as an organization will vary. But at a basic way of, I suppose, illustrating this, it's about understanding their specific goals. It's about trying to replicate the offline experience, that if you was in front of a customer and you had 10 questions to ask them to get to know something about them, can we look to replicate that digitally? So can we build the type of questions that you would love to ask someone face to face via digital channels, by re-engineering our content that we have on our site that implicitly gives us clues around the type of goals that they have, or even explicitly if you're have things such as forms where they could divulge a bit more information around their specific goals, and then marrying that up with the type of content that you produce, but also the type of services that you provide, so we can begin to marry up their goals to their interests, so we can begin to build a picture of what are they looking for from you as an organization. And once we have that, that's the type of content and experience that we want to deliver. If you're looking at, say, areas such as personalizing the website experience, personalizing key spots across the site, or the mobile experience, or your app experience, or even helping drive more targeted, segmented email marketing that's more tightly aligned with their online research. Because ultimately, from my perspective, managing client experiences is all about leveraging the knowledge that we hold on each customer. It's about getting that data in a way that's usable. I mean, I've used the digital CRM analogy, but invariably, how that data is pulled together can vary from organization to organization. And there's different ways of approaching this. But ultimately, it's about getting the data that you need and want on customers, and using it in a way that is obviously allowable within the context of your organization, sort of your risk, your government structures, and leveraging that to deliver a great experience. The other part, and I mentioned this earlier, about digital not looking to replace the typical offline client function that you may have as an organization. From my perspective, digital actually has a great opportunity to support that. So we talked about, if we had that data from marketing combined with offline, human interactions, combining that into one place. But in terms of the offline, relationship manager element, if we could extract that customer and client intelligence on what they are researching and investigating, and get it into the hands of those individuals, that could be incredibly powerful. Because ultimately, data and content are your relationship manager's ally. If you can provide up to date, in the moment reports around ex customers, whether individuals or business organizations that you have as customers, the type of areas of interest, the content you had, you was able to get into their hands in terms of dashboards, or simple email alerts or reports, or even putting into CRM systems. The format is almost unimportant. It will obviously vary on how you approach it. But if you could get that data into their hands in a way that was digestible and useful, and could help them determine if they're managing 10 or 20 or 30 clients, which clients they should reach out to in the next day, and what they should reach out to them about to discuss. That brings us actually to the end. I've actually managed to go through this in about 25 minutes. So as I promised, try to get this under 30 minutes. But so just to kind of recap, from my perspective, the digital concierge service, the use of digital, is all around helping you as an organization to deliver that great digital experience. It's around trying to deliver a human experience at scale digitally, not a one size fits all, a highly targeted, highly segmented experience, leveraging marketing technology to drive this around understanding who they are, what their needs are, what they're interested in, and trying to get the right content to the right individual at the right time, so that they feel that in terms of digital, that you are listening to them and helping lead them on the journey with you, hopefully over many years. So that brings us to the end of today's session. If anyone has any questions, more than happy to answer these. I've got my email up on the screen, so mario@ratiofs.com. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop me an email. I'm more than happy to answer these in the next day or so. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining me on today's webinar, and I hope to see you on our next session. Thank you, and bye-bye.